airplane mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Greg Lockwood and I'm Stakeholder Coordinator at the BC Centre for Employment Excellence. For those of you who are not familiar with the Centre, it was created in 2012 with funding from the provincial and federal governments to act as a research and knowledge sharing organization for BC employment service providers and employers. The Centre's mandate is not only to do innovative research, but also to find ways to share best practices with BC practitioners and employers and better integrate evidence into practice. We created this webinar series as a way to reach out and connect with practitioners. Through this series, we have highlighted new research by the Centre, but are also tapping into the knowledge and expertise within the employment services community. You are invited to view the video recordings of previous webinars that we have posted on our website. Today's webinar is an interactive 45-minute presentation about the agedout.com website and how you can incorporate it into your practice. In BC, youth age out of foster care on their 19th birthday and are considered completely financially independent. Thus, many youth seek employment services in order to obtain employment. While some youth might declare that they have been in care, this website provides valuable information to all young people in their transition from adolescence to adulthood. The money and income section on the site focuses on supporting young people in their job and career exploration. Today's guest speaker is Sam Potier. Sam has over 20 years of personal and professional experience with the foster care system in BC. Her experience includes leadership development, education support, transition and life skills support through project and program management. And in the last 2 years, she has been working at Adoptive Families Association of BC, or CfEEBC, as a project lead on the Young Adult Services Project. The project produced the YouCount report and agedout.com. In addition to her work at CfEEBC, she also sits on the board for the International Foster Care Organization. So this presentation will last about 45 minutes and has been informed by the information and questions that you, the audience, submitted when you registered. And if you didn't submit any questions, then you're nonetheless encouraged to continue to submit those throughout the presentation today, as well as your comments, and we will relay those to Sam. And you can do that through the questions feature in your panel. Again, we have remote cart or live closed captioning available today. You should be able to find the link in the chat box in the panel. It's also been sent to you in the 2 reminder emails that went out today and yesterday. So now it is my pleasure to hand the microphone and screen over to Sam.
Hi, this is Sam here, and thank you for that great introduction. And I appreciate everybody taking some time out of their day to come and listen to me talk about this really great website. So I read through some of the questions that you guys submitted, and I will take you through the website and hopefully answer some of those questions. And like Greg said, you can ask questions throughout the presentation and he'll relay those to me. A little bit about myself. I was in foster care as a teenager, and I aged out of care having lots and lots of questions about what it meant to kind of become an adult, and through some really great support networks I was able to get a lot of those questions answered. But a lot of young people age out of care and they have a lot of questions and they don't have a particular place that they can go to get those answers. Often you guys will see them in a moment of crisis where they might need support around education or housing or careers or jobs and careers. And so this website is supposed to be a one-stop shop for kind of all the information that they have or that they need, pardon me. Yeah, so without further ado, I am assuming everybody can see the screen. What I'll do is I'll take you through the website and show you how we deliver the information. So we consulted with over 100 young people who have aged out of care, and from that information they informed us about what are the important topics in their lives that they would want us to answer, find the information for. So first, I will take you over to our money and income section. So the way we've divided out information is there's things called info pages, which you'll see here with the I. There are quests, which are kind of interactive learning. And what we found from young people, or what they told us, is that school is actually quite triggering for them, and they don't like pass or fail. So the way that we've set up quests is that there's no pass or fail. It's just kind of summative learning, where they can learn information and take as much as they want from it. So I will show you how a quest is set up. So we've set up quests in two different ways. So first you have to sign up to be a user in order to watch a quest or to go through a quest. And anybody can sign up, whether you are youth in care, a service provider, it's your own children at home, anybody can sign up to the website. The examples are targeted towards former youth in care, but kind of any of the information is relevant. So each quest will start off with a video of a former youth in care or several former youth in care talking about their experience related to that topic. So for example, this is finding a job. That's me there talking about finding a job, and there's some other former youth in care. Then they get to go through an interactive learning quest. So there are several sections. So jobs and career, what are some general information? And for those who have learning challenges, these kind of quests are actually read out to them. So I'll show you an example. We click here, exploring jobs and career, what's out there, where to look, and then you can click on the different sections. So it doesn't sound like you can hear the audio, but if you go to the website, you would be able to hear the audio. So what are your options around exploring jobs and careers? What are your interests? Here we have a personality test, so they can actually take the RESIC personality test and kind of learn about the different jobs that they may be interested in. I'll go down here. Where should you look for jobs? So again, this is another quest. Online learning, so online resources, school resources, government resources, and then they actually get to play a little bit of a game at the end. How do you write a strong resume cover letter? What we found is a lot of young people, what they told us actually in our research is that they rather listen to misinformation from their peers than truthful information from adults. So there's definitely like a trust barrier in place. And so the way that we've written the content and tried to lay it out as if it was a peer talking to a peer. Some of the other information is how I should I prep for an interview, and that at the end they can add their own reflections. So let's say they learn from the RESIC test, you know, that they're mostly I and E, then they can write in here and then save it and email those reflections to themselves. So that's one way a quest is set up. And I'll show you education as well. So one of our more popular pages in terms of an info page is Beyond Bursaries, so the Agreements with Young Adults program. So if you're not familiar with this program, we put a little bit of information here, and that's for any former youth in care who was on a youth agreement or a continuing custody order, or what most people know as a permanent ward. They're eligible to get funding to help them finish school, learn jobs and life skills, attend college or university, or attend a rehab program. And they can do this, get some money between the ages of 19 to 24. So the way info pages are set up is a step-by-step process. So step 1, you need to know this. Step 2, you need to know this. Step 3, you know, then you get this. So as you can see here, step 1, fill out the application. If I clicked on this, it would take them right to the application form. Step 2, drop it off at an MCFD office. If you click on this, it takes them right to the MCFD website, which would show them their closest location to them. And then step 3, you would wait to get contacted by an AYA worker. what we heard from young people is when they go to websites, there's often way too many words, and they kind of just, they tune out and they stop reading, and they feel like that's a barrier. The majority of young people said when there's two barriers in place, by the second barrier, they'll drop off and they'll stop doing that activity. So what we've tried to do is really make it simple so that there's no barriers in place, or very minimal barriers. One of the other ways we deliver information is called a service info page. And so this is just strictly information. So there's not a here's how you do it or interactive learning and games. It is just information. The most popular page for service info pages is how to find scholarships and bursaries. So we give them a little bit of information about what the difference between bursaries, scholarships, grants, and tuition waivers, a little bit of a video. Young people also indicated they watch anywhere between 10 and 14 videos a day. And then what you'll see here is we've really just laid it out. If they were a continuing custody order and they're between 19 and 24, these are all the scholarships and bursaries that they're eligible for because they were in care, or tuition waivers. And so they can click on any of these and it'll take them right to the page or right to the application. So those are kind of the three ways that we've laid out information. One of the other ways for quests that we've laid it out, one was that interactive kind of learning, the videos. The other way, so this, again, starts off with a video of former youth in care talking about their experience. And then there's these kind of clickable activities. So what are their options around housing? So living with roommates, pros and cons. Getting your own apartment or basement suite, what are the pros and cons to that? Subsidized housing, so kind of teaching them the basics about housing. What living arrangements, so this is a bit of a personality quiz. So are you somebody who is okay to live in a house with lots of people, which could be messy, or are you the type of person that likes to live on your own? And what we found with many young people is when they age out, they're consistently moving. And so this was a way to help them figure out how to stabilize themselves, find a good living situation for themselves. How do you find a place? So different ways to locate that information. And one of the most popular parts of this is when young people age out of care, they get about $500 from the government to buy all the things that they'll need to furnish their house, which is not a lot of money to purchase all the things for your house. And so what we've done here is created an activity where they can go through each room in their house and pick out the things that they would want, and then calculate the total costs of those things. And if it's more than $500, then they have to learn how to rebudget that so they can get the things that they want in order to furnish their house with the amount of money that they have. And again, there's a reflection section here in the bottom where they can answer some of these questions here, and then email them to themselves. So that's another way to summarize the information. One of the another section that's quite popular here is our ID needs. In particular, getting social security numbers, a driver's license, their status card, birth certificate. So again, the way info pages are set up is it's a very step-by-step process. 1, you go to the Service Canada Centre. 2, you bring one of these pieces of ID. 3, you get a SIM card. And so if any of the young people are coming in for you to look for careers or jobs, and they don't have a SIM card, this is a really easy step for them to learn how to do that. One of the other great features about the website is many young people from care have literacy issues. This option here, if you press it, it will actually read out the page to you as opposed to them having to read it. Again, the sound's a little wonky here, so we won't be able to hear it, but if you plate this on your own computer, you should be able to hear it. And this is a feature that many young people have indicated that they like. one thing that we've heard from young people is when they leave care, while there's lots of support for things like careers and for education, there's not a lot of support around the interpersonal skills. So personal life is the term that they understand for interpersonal skills. So there's quests here about how to have tough conversations, how to explore your identity, build your personal network, as well as how to find some life skills, abusive relationships, find community drop-ins. And then the last section I'll show you is health and wellness, so how to manage and reduce stress, get free medical help, so that goes through everything from fair pharmacare to MSP, to how to find a doctor, which is down here, eating disorders, all of that kind of stuff. So, and then lots of service info pages on how to find a doctor, how to find a dentist, counselor, food banks, things like that. One of the other options is if they can't find, or you can't find the information that you're looking for, you can go to chat with somebody, and this is a live chat option. And so normally when I'm not in a presentation, I have my chat open and I'm there to answer questions that anybody has. And so while people go through the website and they interact with the different activities, we track that on their profile. So as you can see here, I've done the Exploring College and Trade University, Managing Stress. I haven't done the Find Housing and any of these. So when the young person has done it, it will check off that they've done that. At the end of each quest, they get things called collectibles, and these are people or things or activities that can help them in their life. So, for example, boss. This is a community member. They rock because they pay you. True. They don't respond well to lateness, so trying to teach them some of those basic life skills and when you can come to them. So if you're having a bad day, they rather know what's up than you not show up. And for youth in care in particular, they're very likely to avoid conflict, so they'll just not show up to work instead of calling to say I'm sick or I can't come in today or something's going on. And so we're trying in little ways to teach them some of those life skills related things that they may not get before that they've aged out. So as they interact with the website, they can earn things called badges. So badges, so for example, in Tune, you regularly check in with your emotions. So here you can indicate how you're feeling and keep track of your mood. You can read info pages and get badges. And what we do is if they're a former youth in care or a youth in care, for every 3 badges they earn, they get a gift certificate for $25 to, there's about 10 different stores that they can choose from. This is a form of gamification, so most of us adults, we have it on our credit cards. We have some kind of like bonus. If you spend a certain amount of money, you get air miles or you'll get discounts at different stores. This is a different version of it, or if you ever play online games, you're familiar with gamification. This is a way to really encourage young people to spend time with the information, learn it, think about it, and then earn rewards as a result. So in total, they can earn $150 worth of gift certificates. And then the last cool feature is that they can users can choose their own background. So if you don't like the purple, you can choose your own background. Yeah. So I would encourage you to check out the website. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them now. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Sam. We don't have any questions that have come in yet. We do have a comment from a participant earlier. She says she has a client who has been aged out. Parents are people with disabilities, and for various reasons, this individual hasn't completed high school, and they're hoping to find work immediately. So hopefully for this participant, the Aged Out website is a resource that might that might be of use. I have to say, Sam, it's I did take a sort of my own tour of the website earlier, and I think just seeing it again, it really reinforces how much thought was put into the design of the website, because clearly you undertook a lot of research, and especially in terms of like the user experience, and really
Mm-hmm.
trying to get a handle on, the adolescents and the youth that would be using the site, how to keep them engaged, how many videos and how much time they're willing to invest in these kinds of things, and laying it out in a step-by-step model on a lot of the pages, rather than just kind of throwing tons of text and information. So, kudos to you and the team for making it so user friendly.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, and for that young person who, wants to get to work and was a former youth in care but hasn't finished high school, the I would encourage them to consider the agreements with the Young Adults Program, which can provide, it's about $1,000 a month for living expenses, um, and then they can explore their options for finishing high school. So if they are trying to upgrade their high school, they can apply and get AYA to help them finish their high school, because we know without a high school education, and even now without a college education, it's really difficult to get a job that's not minimum wage. So yeah, I would encourage you to have a look at these two things and support that young person to also think about those options.
Great. Yeah, that's really really handy information. Hopefully that that individual is still on the line and was able to take that down. We did have a couple of more questions come in, or a couple
Sure.
of comments that came in just in the last minute
Yeah.
or so. Someone is mentioning, it's a great online resource. How are you keeping it up to date?
Well, some of it is from people emailing and saying, hey, this resource has changed. We are fairly active on social media, and so, often when websites make changes, they'll put something on Twitter or they'll put something on their Facebook. And I spend many hours a week just going through the links and doing a bit of an audit. And then we're also consistently adding new information. And so one of the pieces we just added last week or 2 weeks ago was filing your taxes. And this week we'll be launching one about how to apply for citizenship. And so, yeah, so there's kind of a variety of things, but we also just hope that if there's a link that's broken, people will message us and let us know.
Great. That's, yeah, fantastic that you have the resources. I know just from my own experience, the more information that you put onto a website, the more time it takes to keep it all updated. So
Yeah.
that's great to hear. Another comment, someone saying that they work with youth with disabilities, many who are or who were in care, and she's saying she's going to incorporate it into their program. So thanks so much, and I love the
Awesome.
site. Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's another question that just came in. Someone is asking if there's anything for young mothers, like support referrals, ways to access birth certificates for youngsters. Um, so quite a specific question. I'm not sure if you have any information.
Yeah. Yeah, I will admit that the young parenting is a section on the website that we're hoping to develop, provided we get some more funding to do that, because there really wasn't, I don't think, we felt like we couldn't do that topic justice within an info page, and creating quests is a bit of a lengthier process. And so I'll totally own that we don't, for young parenting, we don't have a lot of information there. We do have how to get my birth certificate. And so if you go here, there's a little bit of, it tells, what you need to know, and then the step-by-step process. And so if you go to a Service Canada website, and then when they get there, it will ask them what province they live in. They'll have to choose that, or that they were born, sorry, I should say, because that's going to depend on the process, and then also how much the fees are. Each province charges a different fee. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, in terms of, and then we're also in about 2 weeks' time adding another info page called how to change of name, and so that's one that for young parents they may have had a child and it has the last name of the other parent and they want to change that information, and so that will be up on the website in about 2 weeks.
Great. It looks like we haven't had any more questions come in. I was wondering, Sam, though, just looking at the homepage and all the different sections that you have, what do you tend or what do you find is the most popular? I think you mentioned the most popular pages within the money and income section. Was it, or was that the most popular page on the whole site?
Yeah, no, the most popular page on the whole site is exploring the education options with
Okay.
the Quest. This is the most popular one here. And then the second most popular is usually finding scholarships and bursaries. And then the third most popular, it alternates some months between the Housing Quest and the Jobs and Career Quest.
Okay. Great. Well, I think we're going to wrap up early today, but that's okay. It was a great snapshot of the website, Sam, and I think folks they're continuing to send in a few comments and are showing a lot of interest here. So, thanks again for taking the time to give us a tour of the website.
Yeah, and if anybody, we have little postcards that can go in your offices if you want those. So feel free to message me. I showed you how you can do it on the website. And yeah, and I'm happy to send anything over to your office that you like, or if you have any other questions that come up, feel free to contact me.
Great. Okay, so thank you again, Sam, for your presentation today, and for all of you folks out there for attending. Today's session was recorded, so we will post the video of the presentation along with closed captioning on our website and send you all the link in an email within the next week or so. As always, we welcome your input and feedback. We would also appreciate any suggestions you have for future webinar topics. We'll also be including a survey at the end of the webinar. So when you exit the webinar, I really appreciate it if you could take a minute or two to answer, I think it's about 5 or 6 multiple choice questions on your experience with today's webinar. And I'm just going to bring the screen back to my screen here. And you'll see here we have just the link for last week's online event, which was translating Aboriginal traditions to employment. So in case you missed it, the recording is now posted on our website. And as for next month's webinar, it's currently being finalized. So stay tuned to the website for more information on the topic and date. That will be coming soon. So that ends our webinar today. On behalf of Sam and my colleagues here at the center, thanks so much for participating in today's discussion and have a great afternoon.